Hello, loosen up. Thanks for coming. I'm here today with a new video for you to chat about this commission and my process when I work on commissions. I recorded my last watercolor painting that I did for some awesome clients of mine. I've done a bunch of work for them. So I'm gonna play the video. I've got it right here and I'm going to chat with you a little bit about my process and how I go about working on commissions and the kind of questions that I like to ask. All of that and more coming right now. I'm still working on figuring out how I set up the camera and everything, so hopefully I'll be getting a new overhead situation soon instead of just putting my tripod on my desk. It seems to be working okay, but my head pokes in a lot. All right, so when I get a commission, most of the time these days I'm doing commissions for Dungeons and Dragons characters. I will usually ask a little bit about their background, their personality, the types of things that the player imagines when they picture their character in their head, because a lot of people don't really realize how much of a vision they actually have of their character in their head. You know, I get a lot of people saying, oh, I'm not that visual, or oh, I don't really picture my character. And as an artist, that is totally foreign to me. But the thing that I've really come to realize is that most people, even people that say they're not that visual, actually do have something in their mind that they're pulling. I will usually just say, when you close your eyes and you picture your character, what are the things that you can see? Do you see their hair color? Do you see the hairstyle? Do you see a specific jacket that they wear or the weapon that they are using? All of these things, they're really important. But beyond just the physical, I think getting a sense of the character's attitude and personality really just adds so much extra depth when I'm doing the pose and I'm getting the expression and everything. I like to make sure that I convey as much of the personality as I can, because I have one chance and I have to try and push certain aspects of their personality. This character, by the way, her name is Elio, and she's played by the awesome Britany. I feel like a really fun challenge with designing characters is to think about their background and where they came from, their story, and then incorporating items or scars or hairstyles that are really maybe tied to their background. Like I said before, I only have one chance to tell the story of this character, so I want to put as much information in as little of a package as I can. Class is definitely important in when I'm designing Dungeons and Dragons characters, just because then I get a sense of how they're going to be fighting. Usually this character, for instance, is based off of a monk, a fire monk, kind of like from Avatar: The Last Airbender. Let's chat a little bit about the actual painting process now. So for this, I used watercolor. I pretty much do all of if I'm going to be doing a traditional commission, I'll do it with watercolor because it's the medium that I'm definitely the most comfortable in. I like playing with other mediums, but watercolor is my bread and butter, and I love it. I think it's definitely my favorite medium. That said, I definitely have changed up my process, a little bit more of a digital process, where I do my sketching digitally, just because I feel like I get the chance to really work on the character and develop, move things around if I feel like I need to, get feedback from the client, and then adjust from there without having to completely redraw things. After that, I'll usually print it out and transfer it with a light pad over to watercolor paper. I did this on the 7x10" block. I went in first with the main color, the color that I'm going to be seeing the most, and then I can kind of assess my color scheme from there. I knew going in that this color scheme was going to be a little bit different, just because we're working with a purpley gray skin and yellow hair, and then we're going to also be incorporating a lot of blue from the items that Elio collects. So I did the purple skin first. I chose a little bit more of a gray based purple, and I always make the mistake of not mixing enough color when I'm using watercolor. I'm trying to get better at this. So I think I had to mix 4 different ones, but by the time you put on all the other layers of color, most of the time you can't even tell, especially at this stage. Wasn't concerned. So I went in with that purpley, and then we did the hair color. Oh, and when I was doing the hands, since I knew I was going to have the fire coming out, a really big thing with watercolor is you can't take it back. Once it's on the paper, it's done. So I was really careful with where I placed that first wash of purple along the hands and left some space where I knew that I wanted the fire light to be hitting her hand. You have to go in with a lot of intention and you have to know where things are gonna go. And I am definitely a little bit of a free spirit when it comes to painting. So this is something that I know I need to be practicing more because it looks so cool when you do it right. Lately, I've actually been doing my liner after I do my first few washes of watercolor. I don't know why I've decided that this is the new way that I wanna do things. I used to do inking before I would do any painting, but I feel like since I did my 60 watercolor headshots for the NPC deck, I really figured out this process works better for me because it gives a little bit more of like an adaptability rather than, for me, it feels like painting in a coloring book if I do the line art first. I feel like this method has really been working for me. I used two different pens and I used a Micron 0.1 pigment liner, which is kind of my go-to. I like the 0.1 size because it gets right into the nooks and crannies of the watercolor paper. And then this is a Tombow calligraphy pen, and this is one that I discovered when I was doing all of my headshots because I felt the need for something that was a little bit juicier than the Micron pens, and I also wanted something as squishy as like an ink brush or like Pentel. I've tried the Pentel brush, it's just too squishy. So this is like a really nice, it's got like a firm, almost like a plastic nib with a little bit of give. It's a perfect pen. This pen, probably one of my best finds ever. So this is the Tombow calligraphy pen, and that's all the information that I can give you. One of my favorite techniques with watercolor is doing the wet on wet blend. It's just like, if you're painting with watercolor, this is the reason that watercolor exists. Like, want to use this technique basically as much as possible. Get all the fun gradients and color melts. If you can see, this top was definitely heavily inspired by the Kunari armor designs from Dragon Age. In Dragon Age Inquisition, they have the most beautiful, like, layered woven armor. Such amazing designs, seriously. So when I saw some of the inspiration for Elio's armor, I was like, I know exactly what I'm going to pull from, which was the Kunari armor that you start with. I think if you get one of the DLCs, I don't know, it's beautiful. I think I was maybe 2/3 of the way done and I realized that I had totally forgotten to draw in the rest of the straps on the left side of her chest. So I went in and I just painted them freehand with some brown, and then I lined them after that had dried, and it worked out fine. Luckily, it was a darker color. That's one of those things that it's like, I don't know how I didn't notice it until so far into the painting, but you know, once it's fixed. Nobody has to know except you. You guys know. Once all the liner is in, I always notice the contrast is one of the things that I need to build up. So I usually go in and darken around the edges and give a little bit more shape to things and form. I also went in and darkened the purpley skin just a little bit more. I was feeling a little too light. I wanted it to really just have like that impact against the fiery hair tones. And once all of that was done, I scanned it in, and you can see when I scan it in, it's always so pale. I just pump up the levels. Levels fixes everything. If you scan in your art, like, really just mess with the levels. Once the colors are boosted, I just like cleaned up the paper, because when I scan in from watercolors, there's always going to be some warping, and that just shows up in the scan, like little gray raised areas where the paper didn't quite push down onto the scanner hard enough. So I usually just use the stamp tool, just drag from the areas where you can see the paper clearly enough. So I started doing commissions about 1.5 years ago, pretty much exclusively Dungeons and Dragons commission work. At that point, I was doing a lot of character art and It's so fun. I have found so much joy in illustrating other people's characters. I think it's a really fun challenge, and I've had so much luck in the sense that I've never had to work with any clients that are just like awful to work with. All of my clients have been really wonderful and receptive. It's been so great. And I hope that you guys enjoy watching the process video for Elio. Thank you so much to Britany and to this awesome group of players. And if you're interested, my commissions are usually open.